Genin Uzumaki Naruto. Flashback Konoha main gates. They had just returned from the Uchiha retrieval mission. The entire group that had gone were beaten and heavily injured. Shikamaru, Rock Lee and Kiba were injured, but their wounds were minor compared to those of Choji and Neji. The Sand siblings even had to help carry the two of them back to Konoha. Naruto, however, had the worst of the injuries. A Chidori wound the size of a soccer ball was embedded in Naruto's chest. The Kyuubi was healing him, but the evidence of the wound was still there. Kakashi had to carry Naruto the entire way back to the village. Despite the injuries, the group was successful in its mission. The Uchiha was in tow, unconscious and carried in Gaara's sand tomb. Sasuke also received major injuries during his fight with Naruto. The Kyuubi's burn marks on his body were self-evident. His chakra levels were depleted and his cuts were deep. A crowd had gathered to the main gates to see the group return. The other Konoha 11 had shown up as well as Tsunade. The crowd that had gathered saw the burn marks as Sasuke as he was released by Gaara. They knew that it could only be the Kyuubi's doing. "Murderer! Look at what you've done to the only Uchiha!" yelled one villager. "That boy needs to be locked up. Konoha is in danger if he gets loose," yelled another. "I say we get rid of him now before it's too late," yelled a pink-haired villager as others started to agree. The crowd would turn into a riot if it wasn't for Tsunade. "Enough," yelled Tsunade. "Any villagers who defy the Sandaim's law will be executed immediately." Tsunade was seriously pissed that villagers supported the Uchiha traitor over Naruto. She gave off so much killer intent that the crowd immediately dispersed. Tsunade ordered that Naruto, Choji and Neji were to be taken to her private quarters for immediate treatment. Sasuke was to be locked up and would receive treatment last, considering Tsunade could care less about the Uchihas at the moment. Once the Anbu had taken everyone away, Tsunade ordered Kakashi and Shikamaru in her office when she was done with Naruto, Choji and Neji. Hokage office. Tsunade was able to give immediate medical attention to all three shinobi with little complication. In fact, Naruto had healed up so much to the point that all he needed was rest. Choji and Neji needed much more work, but would make full recoveries and be released to the care of their families the next day. Tsunade now sat in her office, physically and emotionally tired, but needed to know the details of the mission and called Shikamaru and Kakashi. Once there, Shikamaru explained the challenges that they faced while trying to prevent Sasuke from defecting. He made sure to detail everything that he saw, but also informed Tsunade that she was better off asking the others once they were treated. Kakashi told Tsunade about the most pressing concern, how both Sasuke and Naruto had fought and heavily injured each other. Just as he was about to start, Danzo, Homura and Kaharu had barged their way into Tsunade's office. "What is the meaning of this?" Tsunade yelled, not liking the way her advisors walked into her office unannounced. "Calm down, Tsunade-sama, we are just here to listen to the reports that your shinobi were giving. We as the elders need to be here to help you make some important decisions going forward," explained Danzo, as the three took their positions behind Tsunade. "TCH" was the only response Tsunade gave before having Kakashi explain. He explained about how the fight between the two went. They fought each other as though they were going to kill the other, holding nothing back. Naruto had tapped into the Kyuubi's power and Sasuke had activated his cursed seal. In the end, neither had won. However, both did inflict the maximum amount of damage they could without killing each other. Kakashi added that he believed Naruto had won, using the power of the Kyuubi to stop Sasuke from defecting. Though he couldn't control it, he was successful in incapacitating the Uchiha, which allowed them to return him home. Tsunade seemed to accept the debrief, however, her advisors were not so keen. They were worried about the Kyuubi coming loose again. The fact that Naruto couldn't control it only worried both Homura and Koharu. In addition to the fact, he had harmed the last Uchiha. They were not concerned about the fact that Sasuke had almost defected. Danzo, on the other hand, loved hearing this type of report. Although he outwardly was wary, on the inside, he almost couldn't contain the excitement of possibilities that the boy possessed. Naruto was Danzo's ticket to the Hokage seat and was going to become his ultimate weapon, loyal to only Konoha. Tsunade couldn't deal with this stupidity at the moment. She ordered everyone out of her office so she could think about her next move. Unfortunately, the next moves were already in motion, which would change Konoha's future forever. Streets of Konoha. Naruto was out of the care of Tsunade a couple of days after they returned. Due to the Kyuubi's healing, his wounds closed quickly and he felt really good. Good enough to walk the streets and get some ramen, despite Tsunade's orders to stay in bed. As he walked the streets, he noticed his friends sitting in yakiniku queue. They were all huddled on one table, discussing the events of the past couple of days. As Naruto got closer, he was about to say hello until he heard their discussion. That baka nearly killed Sasuke-kun. What kind of person does that to our precious Sasuke? Yelled two bimbos who had pink and blonde hair respectively. Mendokus, you two really are pieces of work. You do realize that Sasuke was leaving the village, right? Shikamaru retorted, annoyed at the way Sakura and especially Ino were talking about the situation. Well, he didn't have to go batshit crazy and almost kill him. Screamed Ino. If it wasn't for Naruto, your precious Sasuke wouldn't even be in the village right now, Shikamaru said, with Choji nodding in agreement as he put another piece of steak in his mouth. Are you seriously defending him right now, Shikamaru? He nearly killed all of us. He lost control. It looked as though he was the Kyuubi reincarnate himself. Kiba butted in. How can you not be defending him right now? You do realize what the council is going to do to him, right? This is our friend we are talking about, Kiba. A friend that we all used to cut class with and play pranks on the village with when we were little. Don't you remember that, Naruto? Shikamaru said with disgust. Though he did realize that Naruto was a Jinchuriki and had lost control, Shikamaru was smart enough to know that Naruto was a person he still considered a friend. I do remember that, Naruto, but that was before I knew what type of monster he would become, replied Kiba, which sparked a heated debate between Shikamaru, Kiba, Sakura and Ino. Even Choji butted in to back up Shikamaru. The others on the table though remained silent. Hinata, Shino, Neji, Lee and Tenten couldn't bring themselves to speak. Hinata was too nervous to say anything. Shino didn't know how to approach the matter with this teammate and other classmates. Tenten barely knew Naruto and wasn't there for the mission to give an opinion. Neji and Lee, on the other hand, didn't know what to say. Despite the fact that Naruto had made a tremendous impact on both their lives, when it was time to defend him, they swallowed their words. They didn't know how or what to think of the situation. It was a mistake they would regret in the future. Naruto, on the other hand, was in shock. He couldn't believe that some of his friends would blame him for what happened to Sasuke. He also noticed the silence that came from the others. He thought they were all friends, especially after what he had just gone through. With the villagers, he could deal with their hatred towards him. However, seeing people who he thought were his friends attack him or stay silent on the matter, left a large wound in Naruto's heart. As he was about to leave, an Anbu appeared before him and ordered him to go to the council room. It was here that Naruto had gotten the worst news of all. Present-time council chambers. Genin Uzumaki. Naruto, Tsunade started, trying to power through the order she was about to give. You have been hereby Banished from Konoha, Tsunade stuttered, which sent shocked Naruto to the core. Why? Tsunade-bachan, why? Naruto squeaked out. Because of your actions during the Uchiha retrieval mission, you brat. You nearly killed the last Uchiha from Konoha. A council member from the civilian side spoke. We can't risk letting that thing get loose again. We should have killed you while we had the chance. Yelled a pink-haired council member. To think the Yondaime wasted his life for you disgusts me. We should have banished you long ago. If it wasn't for you, the Uchiha would have never left. Enough. Tsunade yelled as she slammed her fist on the table. Naruto, you have until tomorrow to pack your things and leave. Tsunade managed, trying to withhold the tears that would soon fall. Naruto, confused and angered, decided to make one final stand. So you're going to banish a loyal shinobi for a traitor? Is that it? I bring your precious Uchiha home to you and this is the thanks I get. Naruto started, the Kyuubi chakra starting to emit from his body. The civilian council members started to get nervous while the shinobi council prepared for the worst. You will regret today. From now on Konoha's days are numbered. I will make sure that without fail, this village burns down to the ground at my hands, Naruto said as his eyes started to red as the chakra started to become thicker. Two Anbu appeared behind Naruto and knocked him out. With that, the Kyuubi's chakra dispersed. The council seemed to rest a little easier now. Take him back to his home. He has things to get in order, Tsunade ordered as the two Anbu shunshin Naruto and themselves away. That boy talks big, however his words are as meaningless as his skills. Like he could really do anything to any of us, one councilman spoke as he recomposed himself. You do realize that boy single-handedly managed to bring the Uchiha home. If it wasn't for that boy, your precious Uchiha would be with Orochimaru planning this village's destruction. I would choose your next words wisely, councilman. If not, that seat you sit in will be empty the next time we meet, Tsunade threatened as the councilman looked away, trembling in fear. Now everyone can get the fuck out of my office. Naruto's house. Naruto found himself in his house as night had fallen. Loud cheers could be heard from the streets as villagers and shinobi alike celebrated the return of their precious Uchiha and also of the news that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki was going to be banished. Naruto believed that everything he had experienced was just a dream until he read the note that was left for him near his bed. It was the official order of Naruto's banishment. Naruto couldn't believe it. Not only did his friends betray him, but also the village that he called home. He wanted to become Hokage so that people would accept him for who he is and not for who he carried inside of him. But if this is what the village wanted, he would definitely make sure that it would burn to the ground. And by his hands only. Naruto packed everything he needed for his journey. During his packing, instead of thinking of all the good things that he did for Konoha or even the very few people who saw him as a human being like Ayame and Tuki, he thought of all the mean things and poor treatment he received from the village. He remembered the vile words that the villagers said about him when they returned from their mission. He recalled the numerous times that villagers made sure that their children wouldn't talk to him because he was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. He remembered that he was called the dead last and would never make it as a shinobi. He remembered everything. Naruto wouldn't wait to leave the village by sunrise. He would leave immediately. However, he had one last parting gift to Konoha. The village wanted a celebration, they would definitely get one. He snuck into the armory and got as many explosive tags that he could find. Being a prankster had some perks. He set up the tags all around the village. He also set up tags around his house, making sure to destroy the great memories he had in it alone. He bid it farewell, took his things and went to the top of the Hokage monument. As he stood atop the Yondaime's head, Naruto took one last look at the bustling village. He was disgusted at the celebration that was taking place. People celebrating a traitor and the banishment of a loyal shinobi. As soon as the anger grew within him, Naruto activated the tags. A series of explosions all around the village caused a panic and a frenzy. His house exploded and almost made the entire building collapse. Naruto could only chuckle at the destruction he had just caused. The celebratory cheers were now turning into panicked screams as the shinobi were trying to make sure people were safe. Naruto left a note on top of the Yondaim's head. It was left for whoever found it to know that it was he who activated the explosive tags. This is only the beginning, Konoha. Your days are numbered. Be prepared for the destruction at the hands of the dead last, he said to himself as he vanished. After leaving the village, Naruto wandered around Fire Country for a few days. Though he left the village earlier than expected, Naruto really didn't have a specific location he was locked on going to. He had brought a map but deemed it a little too hard to read at the moment. However, as long as he was out of Konoha was fine with him. Unfortunately, he started to get hungry after running out of his supply of instant ramen. He decided that he needed to stop and get some food before continuing his journey. He entered a small trading outpost on the outskirts of Fire Country. No one seemed to notice or pay any attention to him as he entered. He looked for a food place and as luck would have it, there was a small ramen shop. It wasn't overly crowded so Naruto was able to get his food quickly. When he entered, he noticed two figures wearing long black cloaks with red clouds. As Naruto sat down to eat he could feel the aura of two figures standing there watching him. He was almost going to say something and ask them if they wanted anything, but unfortunately, the smell of ramen and the feeling of hunger overtook the young shinobi. Once he finished about 5 bowls, he paid, then exited. He noticed that the two figures that had been watching him were now gone. As Naruto continued on, he entered a narrow road with many trees within its surroundings. Naruto seemed to be the only occupant on the path. Just then the two figures jumped out of nowhere to confront the young wanderer. Uzumaki Naruto. The holder of the strongest Biju, the Kyuubi. You will need to come with us, spoke one of the figures who held a large sword covered in bandages. I'm sick and tired of people ordering me around. The only way you'll be taking me is over my dead body, replied Naruto as he scowled at the two figures before him and took a defensive stance. Well, that was the plan, grinned the figure with the sword. He prepared to strike Naruto until something interfered with him. Wait, Kisame. Naruto, where is your Hitai-8? And why are you alone all the way in these parts? Where is your squad? Asked Itachi as he took off his hat that was concealing his identity. What squad? As you can see, I no longer associate myself with that disgusting village. You're Itachi, right? Sasuke's brother. You know, some might have called me a hero for what I did, but instead, this is the thanks I get. Banishment, scolded Naruto as the venom in his voice was really evident when talking about Konoha. Why were you banished? Surely the village wouldn't have done something that stupid to let loose their most powerful weapon. Questioned a curious Itachi. Oi, Itachi, we don't have time for this. We need to capture the Gaki. Dead or alive, chimed Kisame as he had grown anxious at the chance to brag that it was he who captured the strongest Biju. Itachi waved him off and motioned for Naruto to explain. And boy did Naruto explain. As he finished his explanation, he made it known to Itachi the hate and anger he felt towards the one who caused his predicament. If it wasn't for your piece of shit brother, I wouldn't be in this mess. But now where were we? You said you wanted to capture me over my dead body, right? Let's see if you guys are really to be feared, said Naruto as he got into a defensive stance. He would not go down without a fight. With pleasure, replied Kisame as he grinned with the delight. Itachi, however, had to think about what he was about to do. On one hand, he was tasked at capturing the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and bring him back. However, after what Naruto explained that it was his little brother that was causing all this trouble and also the corruption that was going on in Konoha, Itachi couldn't help but mull over his choices here. In the past, no matter what the circumstances were, he was always loyal to the village first. He would do anything for the village, as evident by him massacring his entire clan. But now he was starting to think on his own for once. Using his own consciousness. Itachi started to think that maybe all of this evil and corruption could have been stopped had he made different decisions when he was in the village. He decided that he would be making his own decision for once. As Kisame swung Samahata down onto a weaponless Naruto, Itachi shushined in front of the young blonde to block the attack. "Itachi, what the hell are you doing? You know what our orders are, we need to bring the kid in," said Kisame in shock that his own partner was defending the boy. "I know what the orders are, but there will be a change of plans. We will not harm the boy, nor will we take him back to the hideout. I know we've been partners up to this point, but this is where we part ways," replied Itachi as he took a fighting stance and faced his partner. Just as they were about to come to blows, both found that they were unable to move. Kuchio's Gamaguchi Shibari Toad Mouth Bind. Jiraiya had come out of nowhere and ensnared both Akatsuki members. Naruto, Itachi and Kisame were surprised at the arrival of the Toad Sannin. Jiraiya had been watching the ordeal from a nearby tree. He was returning to Konoha after doing his research. He sensed the powerful chakra that had been emitted from afar and waited to observe the situation. Jiraiya had heard about Naruto's banishment through a scroll that Tsunade had sent via one of his messenger toads. Jiraiya became livid not only at the stupid council but Tsunade as well for her inability to do anything. On the flip side, Jiraiya knew that he was entrusted to be Naruto's godfather and guardian, yet he was not there for him. Instead, he was off indulging in his research and other pleasures. He never knew how hard of a life Naruto lived, and when they first met he thought very little of him. However, as time grew on, Naruto had shown Jiraiya the same determination and will that Jiraiya had seen in Minato. Jiraiya had now regretted not being there for Naruto and vowed to make it up to him by teaching him everything he knew and also telling him of his heritage. Though his current situation was sticky, Jiraiya vowed that he would do anything to make sure that Naruto would one day fulfill all of his dreams. As both the Akatsuki members were stuck and unable to move, Jiraiya used this opportunity to charge up 2 Rasengans and was ready to end the lives of 2 of the strongest shinobis alive until Naruto stepped in front of him. Jiraiya was caught off guard. "Naruto, move. Do you know who they are? If we don't finish things right now our situation will be bad," exclaimed Jiraiya as he looked at Naruto bewilderedly. However, Naruto would not move. He explained to Jiraiya Itachi's change of heart and wanted to believe that there was still good in the Uchiha. Jiraiya eventually relented and released the Toad prison. Naruto, out of the goodness of his heart, asked both Itachi and Kisame to join him on his quest to destroy Konoha. Though he was wary of the 2 missing nin, he saw that they were not as bad as they seemed. Itachi accepted quickly and gave Kisame the option of joining or dying where he stood. Kisame finally relented after much pleading from Naruto. "I guess this new mission could be fun as well. I think Samahata would appreciate some fresh bait," conceded the shark shinobi. "Ero Sennin. What about you? Will you join me in my journey to not only get revenge but rid this world of more corruption so that the peace you always dreamed of can happen?" asked Naruto as he wanted the person he saw as a grandfather figure in his life to join him as well. Like Itachi, Jiraiya was torn. Konoha was home to him. No matter how long he was away from the village, he would come back and enjoy being in the place where he grew up. He made so many memories in the village that it would be hard for him to leave. But after seeing the way Naruto was treated and the corruption that was brewing in the village, he accepted Naruto's offer. Plus he knew if he lost track of Naruto again, Minato and Kushina would make his experience in the afterlife very miserable. So where do we head off to now? Asked Kisame, since they were now nomads and had no place to really call home. Maybe to Kiri. We can help with the war there. I happen to know a few of the rebels opposing the current Mizukage, including Mei Terumi, spoke Jiraiya. Kiri would be too unstable right now. Maybe laying low in one of the smaller villages would be a good start. The Land of Iron would be an idea. Place, added Itachi. Let's head west, said Naruto in a dull voice. I overheard some messengers talking about that they almost died when they got close to the Great Wall. Naruto, you can't be serious. No shinobi from the east has ever gone there and made it back to tell their tales. Plus that place is just non-stop fighting. Though the four of us combined may be strong, but we wouldn't stand a chance on our own in the west, explained Jiraiya. Well, I would take my chances there than being hunted by everyone we see here, replied Naruto, plus maybe we can form an alliance or something with one of the groups out there. Well, we could lay low there, no one would dare try to find us, and maybe by our luck we could rule the west, haha, joked Kisame with that last part. This only gave Naruto more motivation to head west. If he was to get revenge on Konoha, he would have to become stronger. The west seemed like a good place to start. Itachi saw the look of determination in Naruto's eyes and saw that his mind was made up. It's settled then, we will head west, spoke Itachi to break the silence. Meanwhile, Konoha Hokage's office. After Naruto left, the village was placed on high alert. The little prank that Naruto pulled reduced some areas of the village to rubble. In particular, parts of the Uchiha residence and also the Hokage Tower. Emergency crews were searching for people that may have been trapped under the rubble. From what they could tell, there were a few that were injured, but no casualties. Tsunade had a feeling inside of her that this may have been Naruto's doing, noticing that his apartment was also destroyed, but she couldn't blame the Gaki, he was banished for no good reason. On top of that, the people in the village worshipped the traitor he saved. After his banishment, Tsunade had gotten so drunk that no one, even Shizune, could reach her when the explosive tags went off in the village. Shizune and the Shinobi Council had to take charge to get emergency crews out to make sure people were safe. When Shizune had told Tsunade about what had happened, she could have cared less. She couldn't believe the stupidity of both the Civilian Council and the Shinobi Council. Not to mention her so-called advisors, who were more of a hindrance than anything. Tsunade became so distraught and was sick and tired of the people in the village that she had prepared to resign from her duties as Hokage. Unfortunately, she knew that there would be a fight for the Hokage title and most likely that Danzo would inherit it. Tsunade knew that the village would surely be destroyed if Danzo ran it. She didn't really care, but inside of her, there was still a small soft spot for Konoha. That is why she had picked the perfect candidate to lead. The only thing was being able to convince him. Then the knock on the door came. "Come in. You called for me, Hokage-sama?" asked Kakashi as he made his way to the center of the room. "Yes, I did, Kakashi. I have important matters to discuss with you," Tsunade said as the copy ninja sighed a little bit. "If you were talking about my mission, it was a dead end. In fact, I felt like I was going on a wild goose chase if anything. Even Yamato stated that it was a waste of our time," Kakashi explained. "I could care less about your mission, Kakashi. In fact, I don't even remember assigning you any mission," Tsunade said. "An Anbu was sent to me with a message from you with an important mission. I was beginning to wonder how legit it was, but it had your signature. Anyways, that's beside the point. Can we talk about this later, Hokage-sama? I'm tired and would like to visit my students, Kakashi finished as he turned around to walk out. Kakashi, that's why you're here, Tsunade said as Kakashi stopped in his tracks. You're going to want to hear me out, Kakashi, as the copy ninja turned around to face the slug Sannin. Naruto's been banished, Tsunade stated bluntly as Kakashi got wide-eyed. His calmness had now turned to anger. He's what? Kakashi questioned. Tsunade went on to explain the entire story. The civilian council, as well as the elders, wanted to banish Naruto for losing control of the Kyuubi and nearly killing Sasuke. She also mentioned how the Shinobi Council also partially agreed to the banishment due to their concern of Naruto being unstable and losing control. When Tsunade finished explaining, she was breaking into tears. Kakashi, on the other hand, was furious. And you couldn't do anything stop this. Are you kidding me? And now you're leaving me with all of your problems to deal with here. I won't accept this, Tsunade. Kakashi yelled, angered at Tsunade's inability to stop the banishment. This is not a request, Kakashi. This is a fucking order. You know as well as I do that Danzo would most likely become Hokage if I step down. Do you know how bad that will be for the village? Do you know how many people he's going to be sending out to look for Naruto? He's going to use the Gaki as a pawn in his plans. Jiraiya has already said that he's looking for Naruto, but I'm going to go and look for him myself. Kami knows Minato and Kushina are tossing in their graves right now, knowing that the village banished their son for a traitor and I couldn't do anything about it. I have to fucking live with that for the rest of my life, Tsunade started as Kakashi decided to hear her out. This is a temporary assignment, Kakashi. I'm going to find Naruto, and when I do, you will be the first to know. In the meantime, besides Shizune and Jiraiya, you are the only one I trust right now. You will be communicating with me about everything that goes on in the village. You want to help Naruto, you need to make sure that none of the scumbags from this village ever try to lay a hand on him. Naruto does not want to return to the village. He made that very clear. When I find him, I will let you know and then you can come to see your student. Kami knows you may be the only one he trusts, Tsunade finished as Kakashi pondered the thought for a moment. On one hand, he was furious at Tsunade and her inability to do anything as Hokage. On the other hand, being Hokage himself would let him protect Naruto from the village. Kakashi knew that Danzo and others from the village would most want Naruto for their own power. He would ensure that he would hold things down and make some wholesale changes to both the shinobi and the civilian council while Tsunade and Jiraiya looked for Naruto. The moment you find him, you will let me know so that I can leave this forsaken village, Kakashi seriously said. The moment I find him, you'll be the first to know, Tsunade responded as the two prepared and discussed their plans. With Naruto, Jiraiya, Itachi and Kisame were heading west towards the Great Wall that separated the west from the shinobi world. They were traveling incognito and were not seen as they made their way through Iwagakure. After a few days of traveling, they finally made it to the wall during the dead of night. The wall was long, but not very tall. From what the four could observe, there were many different entrances into the west along the wall. They decided that they should camp out at one of them to try and see if they could find any weaknesses. Unfortunately, there were people patrolling the wall, both on the ground and from up high. The four shinobi decided that they needed a plan to get over the wall or through it without being detected. We need to scout the place to find its weak spot. I can't believe there are so many guys for one entrance, Kisame said, a little surprised by the heavy guards that were patrolling the area. Don't worry about that. I have already let my contact know where we are and if there is anything he can do to help us, Jiraiya explained, intriguing the other three. How do you know people from the West Arrow Sennin? Naruto curiously asked. I concur, Jiraiya-sama. It would have been nice to know this information beforehand, Itachi added. Well, he's not really a contact, as I only met him once and it was at least a few months ago. Secondly, he's an interesting fellow. I'm not sure if he is to be trusted, Jiraiya explained. Then why did you tell where we were? That'll get us killed, old man. Kisame furiously said. He's only one guy and there's 4 of us, I'm sure he won't be a problem if he does become our enemy, Jiraiya retorted. Then, there was a large bang at the entrance. The gates to the entrance had blown open and several men flying out of it. The guards on the top of the wall dropped down to try and contain whoever or whatever it was that destroying the entrance. As the guards attacked, they were sent back flying left and right. It was as though whoever was attacking wasn't even trying. The 4 shinobi hid behind some trees and bushes to get a better look. They were very surprised by what they saw. A man with a bald head, in a yellow one-piece jumpsuit with a golden buckle on his belt with a white cape, was knocking everything in sight. He was moving so fast that Itachi could barely pick him up with his Sharingan. The guard stood no chance at even touching him. The last guard literally took a shit in his pants before being punched way up in the sky. Once the dust settled, the man looked bored. He seemed really uninterested in the events that just occurred. He was scanning the area, looking for something. Is that him, Jiraiya? Kisame whispered, not wanting to be heard, and only got a nod in response from Jiraiya. The 4 shinobi were shocked at the ease in which the man took out an entire squad of heavily armed guards without dropping a sweat. He would most certainly become a problem if he were to be an enemy to us, Jiraiya thought. He decided to step out into the open and get the man's attention. Anyo, excuse me, he started as the man turned around to look at him. It's been a long time, hasn't it? Jiraiya nervously said, as the man was still staring at him, studying him. Oh, it's you, was the man's dull response. Thank Kami, you remember me. I guess you got my message. Thanks for meeting us here, Jiraiya said, still unsure of the man and his intentions. Yeah. Well, if you want to come. Follow me, the man said as he turned around and started walking through the once guarded entrance and what was left of it. Jiraiya signaled for Naruto, Itachi and Kisame to come out and follow him, as they slowly walked behind Jiraiya's contact. As they walked, Jiraiya caught up with the man and introduced him to the other 3. They found out his name was Saitama. He and Jiraiya had met because he had accidentally jumped over the wall during some training and landed in the east. He was lost and Jiraiya just so happened to be the one to give him directions. He thanked him and walked with Jiraiya for a bit, the 2 telling stories. Before he returned to the west, Jiraiya had given Saitama a copy of Ika Ika Tactics, which the latter fell in love with. A pervert at heart, Saitama gave Jiraiya a contact card, in case he ever wanted to come to the west to advertise the book. Naruto, Itachi and Kisame could only facepalm when hearing this. There are perverts in the west too, they thought. Itachi wanted a little bit of background of the west as they continued on. Just as Saitama started, a group of bandits appeared out of the forest and attacked. They were ordinary bandits, trying to make a quick buck. There were at least 20 of them, all carrying some type of weapon. Saitama, Jiraiya, Itachi and Kisame easily dispatched most of them, however, Naruto was in a bit of trouble. 2 bandits were teaming up and giving Naruto a really hard time. They had backed him into a corner, and Naruto had already used up most of his clones. One bandit was distracting Naruto with a sickle and chain, forcing Naruto to dodge and deflect the attack. The other was sneaking up behind an unsuspecting Naruto, who lost track of him. He was about to slash Naruto when out of nowhere, Saitama punched his head and knocked it right off the bandit's body. The lone bandit now tried to run, only to be cut down by Kisame. "Are you alright, Naruto-san?" Saitama asked as Naruto looked at him nervously and responded with a head nod. "You need to be more aware of your surroundings, Gaki. This is life or death. You could have gotten killed, you know," Kisame added, a little disappointed that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki was so weak. "Calm down, Kisame. With how Naruto was treated in that village, it is no surprise his skills are not up to par yet," Itachi cut in, with Naruto feeling a little embarrassed. "Well, if we're going to survive here, we can't keep looking out for him as we defend ourselves," Kisame responded. Itachi knew Kisame was right. If the rumors about the West were true, the four shinobi and their new comrade would be in non-stop fighting. If they wanted to increase their chances of survival, Naruto would need to improve his skills, and fast. Itachi looked at Jiraiya for some guidance, but the Toad Sannin was a bit lost in his thoughts. After a few moments, Jiraiya snapped out of it. He had a plan. Naruto would train all of them. Jiraiya and Itachi would train Naruto to improve his ninjutsu. Kisame would help Naruto learn kenjutsu and also how to properly use and manipulate his large chakra reserves. Saitama agreed to help Naruto with taijutsu, though he explained it would be hard to spar with him since he has the ability to kill people with just one punch. Naruto agreed without hesitation. He knew he was still weak and that there was so much more that he could improve on. He wanted to make Konoha pay for his banishment, by turning into the deadliest and strongest shinobi known to mankind. Saitama picked up on this as well. He realized that Naruto had something about him that stood out. He couldn't exactly put his finger on it, but he knew that there was something about the young blonde that told him he would be great one day. As the group continued on, Saitama went back to explaining the history of the West, from what he knew. So here in the West, it's just non-stop fighting. He started as the four shinobi listened intently to what he was about to say. "That's all I know," he finished. The four shinobi deadpanned. They were very disappointed with that explanation. Saitama explained that he knew there were some factions in the West, but didn't belong to any and was basically a loner. His explanation. They talk too much and have long explanations. Boring. The four Eastern shinobi